This conference will now be recorded.
Brother Bernard,
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, doing all the good. Just been playing carpenter.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's
Commissioner
all
Bolt, how are
over.
you? Scott, how are you doing?
Good to yourself, Paul.
Not too bad, thank you.
That's good.
Did you get it okay? I'll close this to spare you the phone calls. How's that?
Thanks, man.
We're just waiting on James. We're waiting on James and Shannon to get connected.
I'm the lone stranger, guys. Y'all are all together. Mr. Gandy, how you doing today?
I'm good, Commissioner. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yes, sir.
You get that yard cleaned up yet?
It is clean. I've been playing carpenter.
Yeah, I got some stuff I'm gonna probably bring my dump trailer over, put in your yard.
Okay. James. James is right there, Shannon, if you want to get.
James? Can I just sit in here?
Shannon couldn't get on.
I can't get it hooked up in there.
We're just waiting on Shannon right now to get started.
I tried, I'm not seeing anything. I don't know.
We're still waiting on Shannon right now. Is that you, Shannon?
Yes, sir.
We're still waiting on Shannon. Shannon, have you?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, thank you. I call this meeting to order. Roll call. Shannon.
Mayor Trujillo,
Here.
Commissioner Gandy, Commissioner Campos,
Here.
Commissioner Bolt,
Here.
and Commissioner Butcher.
Here.
Commissioner Bolt will lead us in pledge and prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you have given us. Even during these difficult times, we have seen you working amongst us, and we feel your peace and comfort with us as we navigate through this. Thank you for a community who can come together and support each other and give fellow citizens a hand. Thank you for great community partners. Thank you for our hardworking, dedicated first responders, hospital workers, and essential workers who work tirelessly for the sake of everyone else. We are thankful that although we are faced with interesting circumstances, we still have what matters most, faith and family. We pray that you would help guide all of us local authorities and city commissioners to make wise, thoughtful decisions for the sake of our community and the well-being of all our citizens. Please direct us to help others and best serve you during this time. Please protect our community with health and safety. May you bless each one of them. Please give us the strength and courage to move forward. We ask that you would restore us and fill us with more of your peace. We also ask that you would enlighten us and that this meeting would be honoring to you and helpful for our community. Thank you for the many blessings you have given us and a great community to serve and be a part of. In God's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united culture.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolt. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Ballard, second by Commissioner Bolt. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy, Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Motion passes. Do I have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion of the consideration of the minutes from April 27th, 2020.
Second.
A motion was made by Scott Bolt, Commissioner Bolt, second by Commissioner Campos. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy.
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to Commissioner and staff reports. Wyatt?
Commission and our mayor and commission, I have nothing to report at this time.
Any of the commissioners like to address Wyatt? Gary? Gary? We can't hear you, Gary. You're on mute.
I have nothing new to report, Your Mayor.
Anybody have any questions for Gary?
Mr. Mayor, Gary, can you give us a brief update of how our finances are doing since the recent downturn and just kind of give us an overall update?
Yes, sir. Through the mayor and your commission, essentially we're in a situation where, as far as our financial situation is concerned, we have been we've been able to, up to this point, to ensure that we had plenty of funds to maintain our status quo, paying all the bills and things. But we still have not experienced the downturn in the oil and what that would do for us. So we have the possibility, if the GRT comes in lower, of having some possible difficulties paying some bills. However, until that kind of thing occurs, we do have some other revenues that we've been waiting for to come in. For example, payment for our annual lease for the magistrate court to help buffer us. But unless, I guess I should say, that the revenues really drop, we're able to continue to pay the bills and keep operating. But the concern on my part, because I always look at the glass half full, I guess, it is the fact that I don't want to see the dip in GRT because of the oil industry. Does that do well enough to answer your question?
How about a more direct answer as far as how big a dip do you think we can withstand without substantial heartache?
At this point, because of our limited cash reserves that we have, we cannot take very much of a dip. So we've been averaging, say, 700,000 a month in GRT. It would only take about a 300,000 a month dip for us to really be scrambling to figure out what we were going to do to pay the bills.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions by the board? Okay, moving forward. Shannon,
No, sir, I don't have anything.
does the board have anything for Shannon? Commissioner Scott Bolt?
Yes, I have a couple questions for direct them towards James. As far as the submitting the letter to the state about the road water and water project, Have you done that, James, and have you heard anything back?
Yes, sir. We did submit that actually the day following the commission meeting, and we have not heard anything back from the state.
Okay. As far as sent a letter to the governor, have you heard anything back on that either?
No, sir.
Okay. Question I have also is the sale of the hemp plant. How's that going?
Mayor Commissioners, that's actually moving along. I know there was a delay on the closing process due to COVID. Right now, they do plan on, they had to move the closing date from May 1st to June 1st. So right now, as far as we have been told by the EDC, that's still on track. I know that they're communicating daily with Big Dog Industries. They are very excited to move forward. It's just the coronavirus issue has caused a delay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolt. Commissioner Bernard?
Mute there. No, I just want to give out a shout to the city, some of the city employees, the animal control ladies, for taking care of a little business for me, getting a big buzzard off my porch. The ladies did an awesome job. Well job done for them. And I know James will pass that on to him, and he already has. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Campos?
Yes, sir. I'd like to just kind of like follow up on Commissioner Bolt's question, James. Just for confirmation, I don't think the governor has responded to anybody's communication or resolutions. Is that correct, James? As far as you know?
Yes, sir. As far as I know, they have not responded.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Campos. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gandy?
I already got mine, so we're good.
Thank you, sir. Chief Rodriguez?
Nothing new to report, sir.
Thank you. Does the board have anything for Chief Rodriguez? Chief Lizardo?
The only thing I have to report is we started this week using Station 2 with some of the personnel. And then also our ladder truck was in Lubbock last week. So it should be getting to us by Thursday of this week.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Chief Lizardo?
Yes, I do. Chief, how long is it going to take to equip that truck?
Most of the equipment's already here. However, with COVID, they usually send a technician down to do actual hands-on training with the aerial. But that's going to be another 3 weeks. So within 3 weeks, we'll have it fully functional. It just won't be able to be placed in service until we have that training.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other questions for Chief Lizardo?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Chief, I was wondering, staffing for the new station out there, how are we coming on who's going to be where out there, or how many's going to be there?
Right now we have, we're split 3 and 4 here at the main station in town and 3 out at the other one. And we're going to staff it that way until we, for right now, and see how it works out.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Chief Lizardo? City Manager James Williams?
Nothing to report, sir.
Any questions for James? Okay, moving on to City Attorney Patrick.
Nothing to report, sir.
Is there any questions for City Attorney Patrick? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Public comment. I ask that please that you state your name prior to making your comment. I may or may identify you and permit you to speak. You will be allowed a 3-minute period. Mute your microphone if you have called in and unmute when you make comment. Please be patient and mindful. There may be others desiring to make comment as well. I'll open the floor for comments.
City Commissioner Mayor Trujillo, this is Mara with Lovington Main Street. I just wanted to kind of bring up that we will be beginning our Local Innovators Institute with our Big Blue. That's what we're calling the concession trailer. If you guys haven't seen it by now, you should shortly. And we will have our first candidate that has finished the program. And so he will be up on the food truck first, and he gets it for 2 weeks. His name is Gabriel. He's out of Hobbs, but his restaurant concept is Big G's Mac and Cheese. So they're like specialty mac and cheese. You can choose different cheeses and like noodles and stuff like that, toppings. And then he's going to have some specialty items like a burger with mac and cheese and stuff like that. So we're really excited about this. The greatest part about it is that it's outdoors, so we don't have to worry about any of the crazy stuff going on in terms of like carry out and dine in. Like that's exactly what you can do with the food truck. So we're really excited, and we just really want to hope that everybody gets a chance to taste it, and of course encourage the community to be supportive. This is a really big an important thing for them, and COVID has really messed up everything that we had planned. So we hope that the community still comes out and supports them, and again, that's going to be starting on Monday.
Thank you. Is there any questions by the board for Mata? Thank you, Mata. Open the floor for another public comment. Okay. Going to move on to action items. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for Resolution 2020-32, award of RFP for financial audit services.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, second by Commissioner Campos. Discussion?
If I may, your mayor and commission, we had 6 applicants or proposals, and the actual pricing, as you can see, was very competitive. So one of the big situations that made the decision for the Dion Willoughby wasn't just the low price, but she had a couple of things to say in her proposal. For example, that she's very familiar with the Tyler Technologies Encode software, and that she's got a lot of experience working with different staff members, and she's willing to really help us and work with our schedules. And that really made her shine above and beyond several of the others. And that's really all I have to report.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Gary, where is she from?
I want to say she's out of Clovis.
Okay.
I know it's north of here.
Okay. So her travel costs are included in this bid, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any other questions by the board? There's no other questions. Roll call vote. Shannon?
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'd like
Mr.
to make a
Mayor,
motion.
go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consider Resolution 2020-033, appointments to the Southeast Regional Transportation and Planning Organization Technical and Policy Committee.
Second it.
Had a motion and second. Had a motion made by Commissioner Campos, second by Commissioner Bernard. Discussion?
Mayor, Commissioners, if I may, for the past couple of years, we've actually had the city manager who was appointed to serve as the policy representative. And then our public works director serves as the technical committee representative. And it's staff recommendation that we have those individuals retain those roles.
Thank you, James. Is there any discussion by the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. James, how often do you meet?
Mayor, Commissioners, we meet quarterly in Roswell. And as a matter of fact, the next meeting that was originally scheduled for this month, we're actually going to do it via teleconference.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Campos. Any other discussion by the board? If not, roll call vote. Shannon?
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, second by Commissioner Campos. Discussion?
Gary.
Your mayor and commission, the single largest expense on this particular, I'm sorry. Did
Go
I
ahead,
interrupt?
Gary. No, go ahead, Gary. You're good.
So the single largest expense on this particular report was to the Waste Management Authority, the $152,840, almost the end of the report. But I'm available if you have any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Commissioner Campos here.
Yes, sir.
For Gary. Gary, just can you elaborate on a couple of items here? I believe the first one is Integris equipment for $17,000 and interstate billing service for $18,000. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Yes, sir. So Integris, I'm getting to that page. Integris billing, that was dealing with our wash truck for the wastewater department. And I'm not sure exactly what they did with it, but I know it needed some repair.
Okay.
And what was the other
The
business?
item just below it, interstate billing service.
Okay. Oh no, that's the one that I just mentioned. I'm sorry. With the Integris, it was a monitor that was purchased for the ambulance department. And with the interstate billing, it was the wash truck. And I don't have any more details other than that it was a monitor for the ambulance department related for the Integris equipment.
What kind of monitor was it? Kind of an expensive monitor.
Yes, sir. I would defer.
Mayor, Commissioners, it's a defibrillator.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
No wonder. Thank you, James.
And Gary,
Yes, sir.
that Integris equipment again, that was repaired to a wash truck?
Yes, sir. For our wastewater department.
Thank you.
Gary, go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Campos.
Gary, quick question about Tripwire Operations Group. $4,870 for them. What kind of what do we buy from them?
I'm going to find out.
Sound like a
Mayor,
tripwire.
Commissioners, I can answer that. It's actually supplies for training our bomb dog.
I'm sorry, come again, James?
It was supplies for the police department. It was training material for the dogs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do you have any more questions, Commissioner Bolt?
What is, for Gary, what is that Paladine Incorporated? 97666?
Yeah, I went past the page. Yeah. Okay, it says it's a sludge dewatering system for the wastewater department. Had to do with their sludge dewatering system.
Okay, thank you. I'm good, David.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any more discussion by the board? There's no more discussion. Roll call vote. Shannon?
Mayor Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Campos.
Yes.
Accounts payable has passed. Commissioner Campos, would you take us into closed session?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 10-15-1, New Mexico State Annotated 1978, subsection H-7, pending or threatened litigation, subsection H2 regarding limited personnel matters, subsection H8 regarding the purchase, acquisition, or disposition of real property or water rights, potential lease of city property.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Campos, second by Commissioner Gandy. Roll call vote. Shannon?
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy.
Yes.
We are in closed session.
Shannon, you might want to mute.
Commissioner Candy, would you like to bring us back into regular session?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to come back into regular session. The matters discussed in the closed session were limited to only those specified in the motion for closure, and no action was taken.
Second it.
Motion was second by Commissioner Bernard. Roll call vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Gandy,
Aye.
Mayor Trujillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Campos,
He just now stepped out. Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes, Shannon.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes, he just stepped out right when we came into open session. He had to leave.
oh, so he's not here to,
Yes, that's correct.
okay.
We are in regular session. Moving on to non-action items, James.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, I'm pulling up a slideshow for everyone to watch, but this is the discussion item for the FY21 municipal operating budget. I know normally we do have a special work session. However, just due to the COVID and the unknowns that we've had, things have been pushed back a little bit. So we just wanted to kind of run through what staff have worked on to present to you as an interim operating budget. First thing that I do want to address, of course, is our revenues. With our revenues, it's been very difficult this year because, I mean, we've all been accustomed to the boom and bust cycle of the oil field. I know that we actually had our first department head meetings for our budget scheduled for March 9th. However, the Friday before that is when oil really started to take a nosedive. And on top of that, we all saw that we never thought we would see, and that was the price of oil was negative. So right now, the price appears to be, of course, operating on the June contracts, about $25 a barrel. And I know I've got some charts here that kind of shows that, yes, oil price, whenever you look at it from a quarterly perspective, as compared to our GRTs, it does seem to correlate with that, as well as with our area rig count. We don't have the latest data yet for April. However, we all know that industry-wide things are in a significant downturn, mainly because we're stockpiling this on top of the COVID pandemic. However, when we look at revenues in our GRT, we've actually based our revenue predictions on our FY16 activity, which we've seen other third-party reports. The Municipal League pushed one out last week, which does seem to agree with that we're probably statewide going to experience, in particular, Eddy and Lee County, the revenues that we saw back in FY16. So on the positive, though, which did kind of throw a good wrench in the works, is our hemp plant, which is scheduled to go into operation right now. Of course, as we had discussed, COVID did kind of push things back from getting not only the processing equipment here, but also the closing on the building. But it's their intentions, from the reports that we've received from the EDC, who's in contact with them several times per week, that they actually want to be in operation before the end of June. Because they are missing out on a growing season for hemp right now, so they do want to take advantage of the crop yields that are supposed to come in so they can start pushing that out. And one thing that makes this an anomaly is that the Economic Development Department at the state, they had a third-party evaluation done on this as far as the economic impact statement. And what they did was a 10-year forecast on a GRT paid direct to the city. They're estimating that GRT over the next 10 years paid direct to the city. This does not include Lee County or state portions, but it's supposed to be over $68 million in gross receipts tax. The first year alone, they estimate $6 million. I know that when Mr. Chapman and I were looking at these revenues, we did not budget for that. It's just we were extremely conservative, and if I recall, we actually only budgeted about a $500,000 increase to the GRT because of that. But this was all done pre-COVID. So right now, of course, as you know, our gross receipts tax reports, they run 2 months behind. So for instance, the report that we'll get typically the 16th of every month. So the report that we receive on May 16th will be actually for sales that occurred in March, but we're not received by the state until April, and then reported and distributed to the municipalities in May. So we did see the beginning of the outbreak nationwide in March. We will probably see an uptick. I would expect an uptick in sales for the month of March just because of the amount of buying. We also saw different reports that we've had access to where there was a surge in buying, especially within the retail areas. So we may see some increases in our GRT temporarily just for this month. But more than likely, we may experience a decrease in our GRT with next month's report. So moving on to our fund balances and reserves, one thing to look at is as compared to our budget from last year, one thing that we did do is we reduced our revenues by 24%, which when you look at other areas within this region, that's about been average on the expected decrease in those revenues, because we've never experienced a pandemic with oil prices. In addition to that, we did reduce our expenditures by 27%. When looking at that right now, should our revenues stay on track, one thing that we did require all of our department heads to do is cut expenditures. We are essentially reduced to nothing but critical expenditures at this point. I know our procurement policy right now, department heads had the access to where they could approve purchases under $1,500. Anything over $1,500, it did require approval by the finance director. However, we did remove that, and now every purchase is evaluated by our finance director and is deemed only absolutely critical. So that being said, we anticipate that our general fund reserve will be at about 9.23%. This is will leave us with all funds included a year in cash balance at 2.3 million. With what we have produced as far as anticipated or estimated revenues, as well as our estimated and reduced expenditures, we are hopeful that we will actually see a small increase in our general fund reserve by 11.73%, with a cash balance by year end and at 3.9 million. From an are there any questions on revenues before we move forward into the expenses?
Yes, James, as far as the revenues, are you taking the hemp plant into consideration for all the revenues here? I mean, as far as something that we can't really put our finger on, that we're hopeful for happening, but it's not there, so we can't really count on that. That's a question I have.
It is, sir, but not the full 6 million. Like I said, whenever you compare our gross receipts tax income as compared to the FY16 numbers, We are just under about, I would say we're only counting on about 150,000 extra in GRT that would probably come from the hemp plant. And that includes the construction improvements that will still need to be proceeding.
What about the sale of the hemp plant? Is that figured in there also?
As far as the sale of the impact, the sales tax seen off of that would actually be reflected into this year. And what would that be? I'd have to get that figure. It's as far as what sales tax would be on that. Let me get that information and I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm just, and it's just me, but as far as not having something tangible, having something wishful, can we really count on it? That's my question.
I totally agree. And really we're, June 1st will tell the tale. With this, Commissioner Bolt, of course, this is just our interim budget that
Right.
we do need to submit to the state by the end of the month, and we still have until July to make those revenue changes and make additional. Basically, we'll have hopefully a little bit clearer picture by the time we have to submit our final budget, so we can actually make definite adjustments on not only revenues but also those reserves.
Yeah, okay, because like you said, we didn't have a workshop, and with this being my first time, I definitely have a lot of questions. I think I got probably close to 20 questions to ask through all this, but I think maybe I'll just set some time up with you so I can ask you the questions and get the answers instead of staying on her all night.
Sure, definitely, sir. You name the time and I'll make it happen.
Okay.
Any other questions on our revenues before we move on? Okay. So moving along to expenditures, of course, one thing that we did, we requested all of our department heads reduce their year-end estimated actual expenditures by a minimum of 10%. And I do have to say that the majority of our department heads actually reduced them more than that 10%. In addition, of course, by March 1st, they had to submit their budget request. When we first saw the behavior in the price of oil emerge around the 6th or the 7th of March, we immediately requested all of our department heads reduce their request by 5% or also another scenario, 10%. And the expenditure budget that we presented to you tonight includes the department head 10% reduction. So they've actually done an excellent job on that. However, we did make some additional recommendations on reductions that really are outside of the department head's control. But as we previously stated, we did reduce expenditures anywhere from 26 to 27% as compared to last year. One of the first things that we did institute a hiring freeze and also attrition. So you can see we actually have reduced our overall staff by 43 positions. Those are frozen. And what we mean by frozen is they're not totally eliminated, but one way of looking at it is they are not funded for this year. Now, 14 of those positions department-wide or citywide, 14 of those are full-time positions, which are spread across 9 departments. And then the rest of them are actual seasonal positions. So we are not hiring any seasonal positions that we normally see in our parks department, cemetery department to help with the maintenance. Now, what we are going to be doing, I guess you could consider this as a temporary merger of some of our departments. For instance, you can see in our cemetery department, we only have 1 position budgeted for this year. So what we're going to be doing is pulling in individuals from other departments on a set schedule, for instance, like our Parks and Rec or some of our utility departments, to go out there and help on 1 or 2 days a week with mowing and trimming out at the cemetery. and just reallocating personnel to assist running those departments. In addition to that, in the event that we do have a vacancy created through a separation of an employee with the city, each position from here on out will be evaluated to determine whether or not is this a critical need. Is this a position that could be filled through supplementing with other personnel from other departments? A perfect example of this was at our Senior Citizen Center. We had one of the employees in our kitchen resign, and with the delivery and the amount of meals that we are serving to our senior citizen clientele, it was determined at that point that this was a critical need that had to be filled. So when a department does experience somebody who's separating with the city, we will definitely take it on a case-by-case basis at this point, and also evaluating what our current revenue forecast that's updated would be. Some of the additional reductions that we took as far as from a salary and benefits and supply is we do have a safety incentive program. That safety incentive program costs the city about $16,000, but the participation in that actually saves the city and workers' compensation premiums of about $46,000 a year. However, in light of these revenues, they're still going to have to, we still require the participation in the program, but we have removed those safety incentives for this fiscal year. We are also eliminating uniforms. We do have clothing allowances in addition to the UniFirst uniform service that our utilities departments utilize. We are going to cease that effective June 30th to save us over $120,000 a year. With these benefit/supply item reductions, we're looking at about $136,000 or more in savings spread across multiple funds. One of the least popular decisions that we are going to have to we presented to you is our aquatic facility. Essentially, that facility right now, it costs the taxpayer over $120,000 a year to operate. Unfortunately, we only bring in about $12,000 to $16,000 in revenue from, I guess you would say, pool rentals as well as gate sales. This is one of our more labor-intensive departments, especially from a seasonal perspective, and those are requirements set by the state of New Mexico. But the only way that you could actually make this particular facility a viable operation, we did the math about 2 years ago, and it was going to cost about $16 a head. And for the 90 days that it's open every year, you'd have to have 100% occupancy just for it to break even. However, with the state mandated social gathering restrictions and social distancing measures, it's highly unlikely that we would actually be able to open the swimming pool as it is. So this particular budget, we're recommending that that facility remain closed for this summer. Also, we are going to be reducing at our youth center the summer programs, going to more of a distance education, and that's because of the state restrictions on types of facilities, venues, and gatherings, the limitation on that. One other reduction that we've made is a reduction in our janitorial service. The only two departments or facilities that will actually have janitorial service are going to be the magistrate court facility, and this is because we are contractually obligated to provide that service. At our senior citizen center, we're going to go ahead and reduce it to 3 days per week, primarily because 3 days a week, once we are actually able to open it up into a more congregate setting, that we only provide those congregate or in-person meals 3 days per week. With these reductions, we're saving about, I believe it was around $65,000 to $70,000 per year, primarily from our general fund. Another thing that we have eliminated from this budget are any capital projects. And for Commissioner Bolt's benefit, per our budget definitions, capital projects are anything that are over $50,000 or more. So this includes vehicle purchases. I do have an update as far as state legislative funding, as far as capital projects. I'll cover here briefly on the next slide, but we're also looking at some approved fund transfers, such as our excuse me, gas tax will be used to fund street department operations. That funding is usually utilized to match any type of grant funding we get for street repairs. And also any capital outlay appropriations are highly unlikely. The next slide that I have here, of course, this started late last week with rumblings from the Department of Finance, some email exchanges. If you recall the last downturn we had in 2016, the state started to claw back a lot of previously awarded funding. So what they have done this year is any of the 2020 appropriations authorized in the Senate bill, I think it was 371, I may be wrong on that number, but our capital outlay appropriations, we know that we did not receive, because of a line item veto, the $600,000 from the state for the Main Street Utilities project. But they did, in that bill, approve through severance tax bond funds $150,000 towards our theater, and then an additional $200,000 from our Veterans Memorial. However, they are not issuing grant agreements. So that funding is not going to happen unless they find another way to solve the $2 billion deficit in the state budget. The memo that we received today, that unless it's related to water or health and safety, those projects are not going to be funded. In addition, they're going to be clawing back money that was previously awarded in the 2019 legislative session that is not obligated. Now, one of the things that you, when you receive these capital outlay appropriations, is that 6 months from the award, you have to obligate at least 5% of the grant award amount, which of all these projects, we did meet that. What obligation means is that, for instance, like on our theater, we had to replace the server for the projection system. That was going to cost $9,000. So we sent the information to the state saying we want to utilize these grant funds for this particular purchase, and then they issue us a purchase order, and then we make that purchase. However, right now, with all of the concession remodel, the server upgrades, some roof work that we've had done, some other equipments, we still have $51,000 that was unobligated. The intent of that remaining balance was to supplement the $150,000 from the 2020 appropriation to replace the marquee. However, if any unobligated funds as of May 6th are hereby frozen, meaning that unless they change their mind, the unobligated portions, which include $11,000 for North Commercial, and then the remaining unobligated balance of $560,000 for the Veterans Memorial will more than likely be clawed back from the state, meaning that we will lose that funding. Of course, with the Veterans Memorial, we still are in the planning and design phase. So we couldn't realistically obligate the rest of that, not knowing what our actual estimated costs on construction of what amenities or anything. So that being said, we're looking at losing about $972,000 in reimbursements that we would have used for capital improvements. Are there any questions on any of what we've just covered?
I have one question, James. Is there a clause in our insurance, health insurance, that if we have a reduction in staff, like you stated here, about 40 employees, if they would renegotiate our insurance for the remainder of the year or the next year, or for small some sort of credit? I know that some of the I just see it in the private industry, when you have a reduction and so forth, equipment and so forth, you can request that. I didn't know if that was available for us here at our level, at the government level, but I know in the private sector, we do go back and we request for some sort of reduction in our insurance costs because we're not utilizing the equipment or we don't have no longer have the staffing and we're being charged for a ghost instead of a physical person. I don't know, is there any type of clause in our insurance on that?
Actually, from a health insurance perspective, we only get charged for individual. It's not a flat rate based on 144 employees. Not all of our employees take advantage of the health insurance. We only get charged for those who are actually using the health insurance. Now, from a liability insurance, we may see somewhat of a reduction in that because of, one, the reduction in personnel, but also we've reduced our revenues and expenditures. So we may see some savings on that as well, because that does affect our insurance rates. The bigger our budget, the liability insurance industry looks at it as bigger your budget is, the more liability you're exposed to. But to answer your question directly, no, not. Okay. That's not part of our package.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So some additional considerations. So this is only for reference, should additional cuts be required. From an operations standpoint, everything has been reduced to, I guess you could say, bare bones. To be honest, progress is going to come to an immediate halt as we simply don't have the funding. Our main priority, not only is staff, but I know that commission in the past has spoke that we want to make sure that we can preserve jobs, but we still have a duty to meet those minimum reserve levels. So we do have, on a positive note, I guess, from a salary and benefits standpoint, and this is actually addressed in the staff summary, we did authorize, if commission recalls, a salary and benefits survey. We did view a draft of that report. We should have the final report by the end of this month. The good news is that we are very competitive. Everybody is at a very competitive level when compared to demographically similar entities. And we will definitely share that document with commission staff and the public once we receive the final draft. However, we did not include anything akin to a merit or salary increase or adjustment or cost of living adjustment in this budget. That's just fiscally irresponsible. But that being said, should revenues decline, like Gary had mentioned, a repetitive $300,000 a month loss in our revenues, the only additional changes that we can do are changes to salaries, benefits, and of course, a reduction in force. And if you recall, several years ago, we had a revenue contingency plan. A reduction in force is our last step. But I do want to cover two other steps that would occur preemptively before we had to do layoffs. So the first one is a consideration of furlough days. So furlough day basically is a day without pay. We did the calculation on this chart that's included in your summary, and it's also on the screen. As you can see, for every hour of furlough that we institute across the board, it affects everybody from city management all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant, public safety. For every hour that we furlough somebody, it saves the city almost $7,900. And as you can see, we did some 1 day, 5 day, and 10 day predictions. So if we decided to institute and give everybody 5 furlough days, or basically 5 days off without pay, overall it would save the city $314,000. And this includes retirement contributions, FICA, all of that information. Now, what we would like to do is, if we did have to institute furlough days, one, this would take action by the city commission by resolution to institute these furlough days. And we would also like to try to spread these out over several pay periods instead of just somebody taking a 5 day furlough day hit on one paycheck. So that is a consideration. Of course, the other area that is very cost intensive is healthcare. This year,
Hey, James,
we only,
I'd like to interrupt.
yes,
I'd like to, don't mean to interrupt, but I'd like to, as far as with the furlough days, uh, and I know normally with a furlough day is day off without pay.
yes.
Can employees use as far as sick day or vacation day for that or not?
No, sir, that is not how that would work. It would be time off without pay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on furlough days? Okay. So moving along into healthcare, we did see a 1.5% increase in our premiums. We were actually able to negotiate this down without changing our plan. We wanted to make sure that we did not significantly impact the city, but also our employees. Give me just a second. I need to get to that page in my summary. So with the healthcare, this is a $1.5 million cost to the city based on these new rates. So as you can see with rate changes, essentially, as far as the impact to the employee, it's going up depending upon your plan, anywhere from $1 to $3 per month, which is pretty good. And when we looked at it, we did have the option where it would have affected our copay on prescription medications. It would have significantly, they did an analysis and it would have significantly impacted 2 of our employees based on the tier level of medications. But when we actually ran the figures, it essentially increased the city's contribution to insurance, I believe, by about $24,000. So we Gary and I visited with this, and we made that determination. It was better instead of, $2 or $3 a month for an employee versus over $120 annually. Impact to the employee, it made sense to look at that 1.5% increase. However, one thing that I just want to remind the employee or the commission about is that right now, several years ago, we bumped up the contribution that the city makes to healthcare. Right now, we fund 90% of the healthcare costs for the employee. One thing that we could do, and you can see on the following page of your summary and on the slide that's demonstrated here, we could, by commission action, reduce our contribution. We provided anywhere from an 85 to 75%. If we drop down the city contribution to health insurance, it would save the city overall almost $251,000 in 1 year. However, the impact to the employee right now, for instance, for somebody who has employee plus family coverage, the monthly cost right now is $204. If we drop down the city's contribution to only paying 75%, it would increase that monthly premium by $102. But that is one way that in the event we start to see a revenue decline, we could actually save some money while keeping our 44 employees gainfully employed before we had to consider reductions in force. Are there any questions over healthcare?
So James, you were saying that this stuff here is stuff that's not going to be implemented in a last ditch effort. This would be?
Correct, sir. The furlough days and the changes to the contribution are not incorporated in the interim budget as proposed. The only thing is that 1.5% increase that is included in the budget as presented, but as far as reducing for furlough days, it is not. These are just additional steps should revenues fall short from what the estimates are.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The last portion of this, of course, is our professional service agreements with the what we call our auxiliary agencies, our Chamber of Commerce, Main Street, as well as the Levington EDC. So with COVID, we will still see these effects into the next fiscal year. I asked each entity to evaluate and propose to us what they would provide to us for the allotted amount. So our Chamber of Commerce, we provide them $50,000 of base funding per year. 50% of that comes from an appropriation from the general fund. The remaining 25,000 comes from our estimated lodger's tax. So some of the changes, of course, we had cleaning service slated for the Troy Harris Center. However, our Chamber of Commerce will make sure that service and maintenance for the Troy Harris Center will continue. They will take a more proactive role in New Mexico True branding and coordination of those different campaigns. They're going to also put it as a deliverable to Safe Stops for Halloween. They're also going to be focused on business development, whether it be an in-person event or virtual. There's great value in those, so they want to make sure that they can continue to do those, as well as a teen job fair. That was a very successful event, which unfortunately it was not able to be held last week because of the social distancing requirements by the state. They've also been very effective as far as coordinating press releases and press conference, the Facebook Live press conferences that we've had. They've been very, very helpful in setting those things up. Now, one thing in their draft or proposed agreement is for next year, or fiscal year 21, Party in the Park is not listed as a deliverable. The reason for this is more than likely, as we discussed during the commission and staff reports, we have not heard anything back from the state on a reopening plan. Right now, the proposed reopening plan, the governor's proposed draft of phase 3 still limits public gatherings to 100 people. And that's not slated to begin until July. So from a logistical standpoint, I hate to say this, but Party in the Park is not going to happen this year, in this fiscal year. So it was taken out and replaced with what the Chambers has presented is alternatives, as previously discussed, to replace that one particular deliverable. The one thing I will say is that we will still have a July 4th fireworks celebration, because that order was made well before COVID happened. So we will at least still have fireworks on the 4th of July. We just won't have our traditional lizard race, unfortunately, and all of the other activities that Leslie and her crew managed to put together. But are there any questions or suggestions on the Chamber's professional services agreement? Okay. So from the Main Street, we still provide them $50,000, which is split between general fund as well as our lodger's tax. The only change that they're requesting to their professional services agreement is they do not want to take on Halloween on the plaza. Their initial thought was, well, maybe that would be an event that our youth center could host. However, Mara was tied up getting stuff ready for the food truck program and was not able to get me the substitute events for what they would like to replace that particular deliverable with. But she did tell me she would get that to me tomorrow, and we will, of course, distribute that and share that with the City Commission prior to any approval of a professional services agreement. Are there any questions on the Main Street? Okay. The last PSA that we have is the Levington EDC. Levington EDC's $50,000 comes from the Local Economic Development Fund, or LEDA. So they have not requested any changes to the deliverables in theirs, which theirs is more of a business recruitment, manufacturing recruitment, site visits is what a lot of theirs is listed. Theirs is not really, it's absolutely not event driven, such as Chamber and Main Street to draw attention to certain areas in town. EDC is more of business recruitment. But that's actually the end of our presentation for the FY21 interim budget. And I'd love to answer any questions that the commission may have.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
And I'm good to go on that.
Yeah, and I am too, James. I really appreciate it, James. Like you mentioned earlier, come June, we'll really find out what we're going to be receiving in GRTs. So I look forward to seeing that number. Hopefully it's something we can work with, but if not, then I guess other changes will have to be made. But I appreciate the hard work your staff and so forth that put into this interim budget. If there's no other questions, is there anything else anybody like to say before we adjourn? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Butcher, second by Commissioner Gandy. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Campos, he's not here. Commissioner Gandy.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank
Mayor,
you. Yes, sir.
I do have one thing to add.
Yes.
I apologize, but one thing that we are going to do is we did record this meeting. So we are going to try to download this off of our GoToMeeting site. And then upload it up to our usual live stream YouTube channel. If that doesn't work out well, we will definitely post a link on our website. So those who didn't stick around for the budget presentation will have the opportunity to review it.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.